I think one of the common themes that I've heard is this need for new language and need for, the key to good partnership, regardless of whether it's for IS or anything else, is communication. So I think a lot of what we're talking about is how to foster that, who to bring to the table, whose voice is heard and how. I think we ended with, what I think is a brilliant comment by Sabina, where she flipped the language of how we think and talk about capacity building in terms of thinking about capacity sharing.
I think creating space for listening, I feel like, has been really helpful for us, without a huge agenda, so that we're making sure we're hearing from sort of everybody in an equitable way. I think one of the interesting spaces in the world we're working in with adolescent HIV is how to engage and capacitate adolescents and youth voices, which I think it is an interesting exercise. I think we have space to grow there, but also thinking about how to capacitate them in the implementation science space has been challenging and interesting. But I think, again, just creating the space to hear what needs are and what questions are critical for each group is really important.
Mm-hmm. What has been the more effective strategies for creating space? And how do we create that space? Because often we have these meetings, but does that really create space?
It's a good question. And do you hear from the loudest people in those meetings? But I think this is a tiny example or a tiny tool, but I think for us, we've made sure to create time on the agenda and or outside of the meeting for without a lot of programming, so that we're really hearing from the collective group, which includes all stakeholders, what their needs are and how we can best support capacity building. But I think you're right, we're often like scurrying through an agenda, and it makes it hard. But
I think just to add to that, that's a very valid point in terms of creating that space. Just from a perspective of managing multi-agency groups, working groups, and sort of building on what I said earlier in terms of collaboration for a purpose. It's the aspect of how the whole sort of group is governed and managed. Is really critical, and much of it now we have, all of us, I think we have some flavor experienced online working and digital working, right? So using those tools, how best we can reach out to everybody. Not all 7, like I said, 70 plus members are part of the group. Not all 70 members join those working group meetings, right? Some join some meetings, some join in other meetings, but having the governance of open communication and sort of openness about what was discussed and sharing that with the larger team, even if they were not able to join, having collaborative documents that people can, if some people are not sort of that active on calls and meetings, but at least they have access to the document itself and they can go and comment. I think are some ways that we have sort of tried to manage, but at the same time, reaching out sort of separately or individually with these groups and checking, making sure that yes, this is really responding to the needs at the ground level. So whatever we are creating is not just sort of for the purpose of it, but it's really helpful for the implementation and supporting the work at the country level. And subnational levels. I think that's essential level as well. So just to kind of keep that, keep us on track. I think that's just kind of lessons learned.
One, I wanted to say there's a conundrum we have where when we say stakeholders and we talk about professors and then we talk about local communities, there's an automatic hierarchy. And there's a hierarchy of a presupposition of particular kinds of knowledge and who brings what to the table. And I want to kind of challenge some of these hierarchies, because I think Rachel explained it really earlier quite well about linking in with partnerships and working at a local level. But even with the global and the local, I think it's useful to kind of question and interrogate what those meanings, what does it actually mean when you're working with partners? Why do contexts matter? Why is embedded long-term engagement required to build relationships that have sustained kind of ownership that allows for adequate or appropriate practices or translations to take place? Otherwise, it's the quick and the fast, and sometimes communities or certain stakeholders are not often included throughout a process, but are brought in at different times that are convenient for us who work in academia, or even in terms of co-developing or co-designing courses. I mean, usually what happens is, in my experience, we've actually worked with colleagues and we've co-developed, co-designed practical competencies that are required